Well, I said we kick it off at 5:30, and though Mike is late, which is so classically him, all DGens late all the time, as we know. I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. So thank you so much for joining us this MLB Draft Live episode from Royals Weekly. We'll do a normal intro. Don't worry, I got a joke in there about Mike coming up when he gets here, but I refuse to insult him not to his face. And so it's always going to be to his face with me. I'm a stand-up guy. When I insult him, he's going to know about it, is my thing. And so we'll let him get here before we dig into that. There have been a ton of great questions in the chat so far, just having a wonderful back and forth with some people. Feel free to throw any questions you have in there, or if you want to make any statements or comments or anything on the picks taken. It's not just our thoughts we want to hear. We want to hear everybody's thoughts on the picks for tonight. So go ahead and throw stuff into the chat if you want. I'll try and address those if I can and fight off any gnats that I see in my living room. But then if I can't, I apologize if I don't get to your comment, but hopefully we will get a chance to dig into some of those questions and things like that moving forward. So yeah, we're just waiting on Mike at this point. I've heard there's a lot of good questions about who the Royals might take with their second pick. Obviously, they don't have a 39th pick, a 39th overall pick anymore. And so they'll only have the 41st pick. Of course, Mike is drinking as he comes into the
Coke, Diet Coke,
just Diet Coke. Lovely little Diet Coke for Mike. You got to watch them carbs. You got to watch them sugars. So go with the Diet Coke. Mike, I've just been chatting back and forth the peeps in the YouTube. They've been leaving comments and questions and stuff. It's really great. We're going to kick off with like a regular intro though. So I'm going to go ahead and read this regular intro we have. Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, the number one pick in your fantasy DGen draft, my brother Mike.
Oh yeah, 5-tool DGen player right here.
5-tool DGen. He's got
5-tool DGen player.
This guy's got 5 different betting apps on his phone right now.
How do you know I'm a DGen? I was 2 minutes late to one of my own podcasts, and I'm drinking Diet Coke.
And I got a lovely Diet Coke with me while it's happening. Yes, a professional moment. He turns into a chance to drink Diet Coke and be late. It's wonderful. Thank you so much to everybody who's joined us so far. We're very excited for this draft tonight. Very excited to see who the Royals add to their organization. It's going to be a real free-flowing. Some people might jump on and join us as we do this. I think Josh Kaiser said he'll join us. Might have a couple others join us as the night goes. But we're really here to just break down picks, talk about prospects they might draft, they might not draft, and all that sort of stuff. We have a lot to talk about, and so we need to get to it. But first, we need to tell you that Bet Online is your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season, from baseball, golf, soccer, right to all the top fights at UFC and MMA and boxing. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are played. When the games are over, head on over to their online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker and unwind with one of their 150 slot games. Head over to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% off free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet Online, the game starts here. Mike, we got to talk about this trade that was just made because it's such big news. It's impacting the draft. It's going to impact the team when they get back from the All-Star break. Hunter Harvey traded for. The Royals have sent Caden Wallace and their 39th overall pick in tonight's draft to Washington for Hunter Harvey. Astute listeners may remember we mentioned Hunter Harvey as a trade target for them in the bullpen. He's had 45 innings pitched so far this season, 4.20 ERA, 3.16 FIP, 26.3% strikeout rate, and a 6.3% walk rate. Mike, what are your thoughts on the Royals getting Hunter Harvey, losing Wallace in their 39th pick?
You know, I think people have been talking a lot about how they overpaid, and I think that's something you're going to have to do if you want to kind of jump the market usually. Okay, the Royals have not been that team willing to do that in the past. I like that they were aggressive enough to go out and get a guy who brings exactly what you needed to the bullpen, the ability to strike people out. That's 50 strikeouts in 45 innings for Hunter Harvey this year. His ERA is a little bit up this year. There may be some issues with some of his secondary pitches, but he is still he automatically becomes the best pitcher in your bullpen. He, in my mind, automatically comes in to close games and kind of reshuffles how you're doing those kind of things for the second half, but I love it. And you know what's weird? I put this out on Threads. Immediately, it did like several things. One, inflated your head because you were the guy saying they should go get Hunter Harvey, right? Made your head a little bit bigger because like it needed to be.
I'm getting recognized.
And then, but the other thing it did, it made the bullpen better, but then it also just killed the Substack post that I wrote the day before.
I know
about Caden Wallace as a prospect for the Royals. And when I wrote that, what I wrote about was Caden Wallace is a guy who's put up decent numbers throughout his minor league stint, which hasn't been that long. I mean, he's had basically one full season of minor league baseball, and he was very good in that season, but he always seems to be lacking just a little bit of everything. He's good at everything, but he's not great at anything. And so you're a third base prospect that's an above average glove, but there's questions on whether you're going to hit the ball hard enough consistently. People like your raw power, but we haven't seen that turned into in-game power as much for a couple different reasons. You're not as consistent with it, and there's questions about whether you can consistently have the right launch angle to produce power at the major league level. So I was completely fine with the move. People were like, he's your number 2 prospect. Well, guess what? That's because your system isn't that good. And if you go look at national stuff, that's what they're saying. They're saying your system isn't that good, so your number 2 prospect isn't really a number 2 prospect. And so the thing that gets me is the money that we give up kind of for the draft pool. That hurts a little bit, but I like the move. If you're going to try and make a playoff push, I think it starts here.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's like, I mean, we talked about this not that long ago. I don't know if it was on a midweek episode or a weekly episode, but Wallace was the most I would want to give up. Wallace and this pick, like some people are like, oh, you overpaid. I don't know that they did when you consider like what it would take in this market to get a reliever like Hunter Harvey. It's going to take a lot in this market to get a controllable reliever who has back end stuff and potential and that sort of thing. And so it's going to take a lot to get a guy like that. And people are freaking out. Mostly what I hear from most people is not that they're upset with giving away Caden Wallace. I think a lot of people are sort of in the same boat as us, which is like, there's a decent chance he ends up a quad A player, that sort of thing. But they're really mad about the 39th overall pick. And I'm like, guys, listen to this. Okay. The average amount of WAR produced by a 39th pick is about 1.5 to 2.5 WAR over their entire careers. Like that's a bunch of them who don't make it to Major League Baseball. And that the ones who do, they average about 1.5 to 2.5 WAR over the course of their career. Right. And so what you're giving up there is a real long shot at an everyday Major League player. Okay. Yeah, it's not nothing, right? You look at the guys who Lance Lynn went around there, some other guys, Sean Manaea, very famously, the Royals picked Sean Manaea right around there, but who else went right around there? Daniel Lynch. And so it's
Foster
it's a give
Griffin,
and take, right? Foster Griffin went right around there. Like it's that sort of thing. And so we don't have to fret over, this isn't like the NFL. Like giving away a second round pick even in the NFL is a lot. Like that's a lot of stuff.
Big deal.
For the Royals, it's one pick in a draft where they're going to have 20 other picks. Okay. So that one pick will not make or break this draft, and it will not turn their system around. Okay. And the odds of that one pick being even a, Vinny Pasquantino level of value are pretty remote. And so you got to put it in those terms. I think you got to really think about that. I am very happy with nailing that prediction there. I'm just going to say, am I shadow running the Royals? I'm not going to say it. But I might be shadow running the Royals. Mike, let's talk a little bit about, as we sort of prepare, we got 20 minutes until Cleveland is supposed to be on the clock. Maybe we should be talking a little bit about this draft specifically. What are your thoughts on who lies at the top of the draft? Right now, I have essentially 3 tiers outlined. I have the Charlie Condon, Travis Bazzana, and JJ Weatherholt tier. A lot of talk about Weatherholt being maybe 1-1 because Cleveland might want to save some money. In tier 2, I have Jack Caglianone, Chase Burns, Hagen Smith, Connor Griffin, Bryce Rayner. And then in tier 3, I have Nick Kurtz and Braden Montgomery. What are your thoughts on that as a sort of organization for the top picks? What are you thinking about the top of this draft?
That is pretty much exactly how I would have them. I would probably have Bryce Rayner down one more tier because I'm not as high on him as I am Connor Griffin, but I think he's definitely a top 12 guy. I think probably in just about anything you do. I think you've got it laid out really well there. I think the crazy thing, and this is the thing that we always talk about when we talk about the Major League Baseball draft, is money is going to play. Draft strategy is much more complicated when it comes to the Major League Baseball draft. And that draft pool plays such a big factor in what some teams like to do. I don't think you're talking about a JJ Weatherholt as the best player in prospect in this draft with the highest ceiling in this draft for sure. But I think because he is a very good prospect and he might be willing to take less money, you're hearing a lot of juice to him at 1 for Cleveland. a guy that we've liked for a very long time, a guy that Alex Duvall's come on the show, talked about him quite a bit as well. I like a lot of these guys for the Royals. There's a couple I would stay away from. I'd go Connor Griffin over. If you're going high school, I'd go Connor Griffin over Bryce Rayner. I know there's been a lot of talk about how the Royals like Bryce Rayner. I would stay away from Nick Kurtz, and I prefer, of the college pitchers, I prefer Hagen Smith over Chase Burns.
You and I are actually which is weird. You would think Mike and I are on the exact same page a lot because we're twins. We've been together for a long, long time of our lives. We do this podcast, everything. We actually disagree on prospects and things like that a lot, like especially when it comes to drafts and things like that. Mike thought Ben Roethlisberger was going to be a bust, and so I'm like, I can't really respect his opinion. But yeah, I actually agree with everything you just said there. Right? Like I'm Griffin over Rayner. I'm Smith over Burns. I'm a little bit concerned about Nick Kurtz, both because of the first base profile and the physicality and things like that, though there are great things about all these guys. What's weird about these guys is you're going to hear us talk a little bit about the things they do well and a little bit about the things they don't do well. But what you need to remember is these are the best players in this draft, okay? Like, no matter what, Nick Kurtz is better than whoever's going to get taken at 40, right? Like, and so probably, right? And so we might be saying, oh, we're not big on Nick Kurtz. I'd be big on Nick Kurtz at 12, 13. Like, I think he's that good, right? Like, but I wouldn't be big. I'm not a big top 5, top 6, top 7 guy for Nick Kurtz, right? And so think about that as we sort of talk about these sorts of distinctions that we're making. It's not necessarily that we don't like a guy. It's just that not in this spot, not at this pick, that sort of thing. Mike, you mentioned all the smoke around Bryce Rayner and Hagen Smith and that sort of thing. I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in a second after we read another ad. I'm sorry, guys. We have to get these ads in during this, and I want to make sure they get in because last year we completely forgot them. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All in Physical Therapy. You already know that All in Physical Therapy helped turn our mother into the human version of the Death Star. But what you don't know is that Mom loved her experience at All in Physical Therapy because of the one-on-one attention she got from the staff at All In. I've lost my place.
They guarantee.
You go ahead. They guarantee a personalized one-on-one experience to suit the needs of patients recovering from total joint surgeries, sports injuries, or any kind of injury or pain.
No one can get me over the pain of the following names: Bubba Starling, Hunter Dozier, Kyle Zimmer, Ash Russell.
You got to let it go, buddy. You got to let it go, buddy. All in Physical Therapy is owned and operated by Tommy Freevert with locations in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and coming soon to Belton. But most importantly, they're in network for nearly all insurance providers.
Foster Griffin, Aaron Crow, Christian Colon.
All right, that's enough. If you're a high school athlete recovering from injury or someone bouncing back from a brand new hip or knee, check out the best physical therapy in the KC Metro at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-pt.com. Or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. Mike, we're talking a little bit about Hagen Smith and Bryce Rayner. Can you just give us a little breakdown on what those two players are? Who are Hagen Smith and Bryce Rayner?
Absolutely. Bryce Rayner is a high school shortstop from Texas, and he left-handed, probably real athlete. The way I described him today on Threads was he's your typical top 10 to 15 high school kid. He is crazy. He's a good athlete. He's got good, what you would say, projectable power from the left side. A lot of people think he can stick at shortstop, and if he doesn't, he goes to third base and plays an exceptional third base. He's played in all the high-end prospect circuits. He is a very, very good player from the left side and has played against kind of the top talent of high school baseball as well. Hagen Smith is kind of the reverse of that. He's a college guy out of University of Arkansas, got injured his junior year of high school, or was out his entire junior year of high school with Tommy John surgery, came back and threw 7 no-hitters as a senior in Texas, and had looks in the draft coming out of high school, but chose to go to Arkansas instead. He is a lefty with a somewhat deceptive and funky delivery, but he throws a fastball averaging around 96. It'll get up to 97, 99 even at times. He was a level of dominant at the University of Arkansas that is hard to fathom. And if you want to know what dominance looks like, go watch Hagen Smith pitch against Oregon State this year. He struck out every batter for 5 innings against one of the best teams in college baseball. It is unbelievable.
Travis Bazana multiple times.
It was unreal. I've seen it a couple times now. It's It's crazy. Really good fastball that gets swing and miss in the zone. Really good slider as well. Working on a split finger kind of change up pitch as well. He used that a lot more this year. But he's the kind of guy who he's not Paul Skeens. He's not that level that everybody thought of, but he is a step down from that. He was that dominant in college.
Josh, we're talking about Hagen Smith and Bryce Rayner. What are your thoughts on those two as getting the most talk of interest from the Royals?
It makes sense for the Rayner talk. Going back to like Brian Bridges' years with Atlanta, he was leaned a little bit pretty heavy on prep side. So that's kind of, it came down to those two. I would expect Rayner a little bit more, but I'd be pumped about either one of those guys. It's kind of where I'm at with both of those guys.
We should welcome you. Welcome Josh Kaiser, from co-host of One Royal Way. He's going to hang with us for a few minutes before he has to hop off and jump on his own podcast. They're doing a live episode as well. They do live episodes every time, right? You guys are live every week, right?
We've started to do that about 6 or 7 weeks in, and the Royals are like 1-5 in those games when they play simultaneously with us.
Ditch it. Ditch it. You owe it to the fan base. You got to stop doing it live.
Yep,
you owe it
that is the running joke that anytime we go live, it's just a shit show. So that's where we are. But yes, every Tuesday night around 8:00 is what we're shooting for. We'll be on One Royal Way YouTube channel, and then it'll be in podcast form the day after. So a lot of fun we have, similar to you guys.
Yeah, excellent stuff from you and Joel Penfield and Jordan Foote over there with the Kansas City Sports Network. It's a great listen. Make sure you're listening to that. My thoughts on Rayner are probably a little less than everyone else's, and it's not because I don't like him. Again, I try and make this point to like people. It's more like, Mike, I thought you hit it on the head when you said he's a lot like a lot of high school prospects you see who go 10 to 15 in the first round. He is tall. He is athletic. He is, can play a premium position, probably stick there, got the big arm because he pitches too and that sort of thing. The thing that I worry about is when I'm looking at like a raw ball of clay to play with in a prep player, I want a tools monster. I want a straight up tool shed out
Bobby
of
Witt Jr.
I want Bobby Witt Jr. or I want Connor Griffin, right? Like to me, Connor, those two are inevitably paired with each other and compared. And I look at Connor Griffin and I see a tool shed. I see a dude who's like, because I've seen a bunch of Bryce Rayner like videos and things like that of him taking swings and doing batting practice and hitting in games. I'm not overly impressed with his swing. I'm not overly impressed with a significant number of things about him. Now, every high school player is like that, though. They'll all get better. They'll all be coached and all that sort of thing. So what am I really just looking for then? I'm looking for a real athlete, like a true – I'm not going to have to worry about exit velocities with this guy because he tattoos baseballs. That's Connor Griffin. I'm not going to have to worry about like ability to stick at a premium position because he can play center field. That's Connor Griffin. And so there are some other types of things that I worry about with Rayner that are just like, is he going to just come in too middle of the road, right? And then I watch, this is a really kind of vibes only thing, but I've seen clips of Connor Griffin and I'm like, this dude freaking loves baseball. This guy is an animal out there on the field. And so I'm looking for that level of like engagement too, if I'm looking for makeup, right? And so, yeah, that's my thoughts on him. Smith is my number one pitching prospect in this draft. I like him a little bit better than Burns because I have concerns with Burns' fastball and some delivery stuff. It's got some effort in it and that sort of thing. And so I'm a little bit more, I'm a little higher on Smith, but there is great stuff there from Burns as well. Guys, I want to talk a little bit about, go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say, I got Burns higher, but if either one of those guys ended up on the team, I'd be jacked up for it for sure.
Yeah, that'd be a real jewel, and you'd be talking about him along with, Caderna and those other guys. I mean, whoever, if Smith or Burns gets drafted, he's the number one pitching prospect in the system by miles.
Well, I think there's a couple good college pitchers that can be gotten at 30. What is it, 36 or not? Sorry, 41, whatever it is.
41.
Yeah, I think there's a couple good arms there. To be honest with you guys, that are like one or two small things away from being in the that 15 range or whatever. So
absolutely. I did want to ask about this class as a whole, because there's a lot of conversations about what it might mean that the Royals traded pick 39. Do they not like this class? I've heard some people really dogging on this class. What are your thoughts on what this draft is in terms of its entirety?
I don't get it. I don't see that at all. Now, here's why I think that some people might think this is a kind of a weak class, because in that 25 to 50 range, there is a lot of prep guys in that range that are like, hey, this a really good athlete. Sometimes the high school kids that fall in that range are good athletes with maybe one elite skill. They're a great fielder and a great athlete. They have a great hit tool and a great athlete. Stuff like that. You usually see the hit tool and the fielding thing a lot more because they haven't developed that power yet as high schoolers. But I think there's a lot of those guys, and I think there's a lot of intriguing arms at the high school level in that area as well. A lot of high velocity high school arms and things like that. But I don't think that this is a bad class as a whole. When I look at, and obviously we don't have time. I don't have time anyway to go through all 250 prospects or whatever that are going to be taken. Yeah, right.
Abandon your family.
Do it. We're almost there already. Okay. So, but
Dad went out for smokes and he never came back.
He never came back, right?
He's wandering the backfields at LSU right now.
Yeah, right now. That's what he did.
That's what I'm saying.
He's hitting up Hutchinson Community College baseball coaches for deep dive info. But when I look at about the same number of guys that I look at every year, I look at usually the top 100, and I see really intriguing guys in the middle there. Even I'm not as big on some of those high school guys in this year's, but there's some good ones. I'm really intrigued by some of the college arms that are going to be in the middle of this draft. A couple bats too. You and I talked about Tommy White as a guy who may go a little bit deeper. That maybe is like, why would you pass on this guy? So yeah, I don't see this being a down draft. Josh, what do you think?
I mean, I'm more of an aggregator when it comes to the draft stuff. I'm not eyes on my own perspective here, but it does seem like the overall consensus is that it kind of, once you get past the top 9 or 10, you start to run into guys with the big red flags that, might not offset the upside just as much as you want them to. And then after that, it's considered pretty widely shallow at that point relative to other classes that we've kind of gone through. And that trade kind of does tell me that the Royals kind of feel the same way about that, in that it seemed like the 39 pick was, I put it on Twitter, like probably the 5th most valuable trade piece that they had at this trade deadline. The shelf life was there. They kind of had to pull the trigger if they were going to include that. But I do think that it also kind of signaled to me that they did believe it was a little bit around that time, like, relatively speaking, they could probably find plenty of value outside of that. And the pool bonuses, losses is somewhat big, but also not really considering where the pick was. So to me, it definitely seemed like the Royals kind of thought that, around that 39 pick, they could probably find their way of a couple guys that could be there at 41 that they just like just as much as the value to see in Hunter Harvey. So I kind of got the same vibes from the Royals that they thought this draft class was similar to the scouts and the sites and everybody kind of thinking the same thing.
Yeah, and that might be the case. They might see weakness when you get beyond that top, 30 or so. My thinking is like I think what people inevitably do is compare this to the last draft, right? And so last year's draft was just insane in terms of its top side, in terms of its depth. It was one of the best drafts we've seen in the last 10 years, at least, with guys like Skeens and Cruz and Langford and Clark. And it was so.
Blake Mitchell. You left Blake Mitchell out of there.
Yeah. Blake Mitchell, obviously. I mean, he's done quite well, but I mean, think about the dudes who we saw hit minor league baseball and have immediate success. Matt Shaw, Kyle Teal, Paul Skeens is already in Major League Baseball. And so, we just saw so many guys hit minor league baseball and have immediate success. Nolan Schanuel was another one from last year's class who made it to the Angels immediately. There were just so many guys who had bunches of big success right away. And people knew that last year's draft was going to be a big one, that maybe we're sort of comparing in unfair ways a little bit, yes, is this draft as good as last year's? It is not, right? I think it's pretty undeniably not as good as last year, especially at the top, where you have some good hitters, some intriguing hitters, but none of them are playing premium positions the way Dylan Cruz did and that sort of thing. And so you have some good starting pitching, but none of them are going to be Paul Skeens. I don't think anybody thinks that's going to be the case. And so, it's one of those deals where it's it may not be as good as last year's, but it's not like Luke Hochevar year or whatever. It's not I don't think it's to those depths. I think there's just too much talent in both prep and college baseball at this point for that for that kind of fall off. And so, yeah, I agree with Mike. I see a lot of talent, especially raw talent in those later back into the first round, early part of the second round. And we'll talk about some more of those guys as the night gets going.
And if they are prep heavy, it would make sense that a lot of those guys are raw, that you are working with a ball of clay. And I mean, that's a crapshoot of any crapshoot. It's really what it is. So I'm interested to see if there's anybody in that scouting department be like, let's roll some dice, baby. Let's see what we can do with some of these tools and grab some value. I'm excited for this.
That would be wild to me. Real quick before Josh leaves, I want to hear your thoughts, Josh. Who do you think is going to be available when the Royals pick? And then of that group of people, who do you want them to take?
Oh, I got to think. I mean, Condon and Weatherholt sound like they're going to be 1 and 2. It doesn't sound like it sounds like that is consensus depending on the order. It kind of depends. So I think by then we're looking at Hagen Smith. We're looking at Braden Montgomery, Nick Kurtz, maybe Caglianone. And of that group, I still probably would lean Connor Griffin just for that upside. That's what this system is lacking as a whole, is a lot of talented on the upside. They got a lot of depth of but not great. So I'd be very, very excited if they were able to grab Connor Griffin at 106, bet on the upside, develop into who they want, and be that 5-tool guy ready to hit the ground running in like 2028. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but yeah, that would be what I would want. But really, again, as long as they don't pick anybody outside of that top 9 or 10, I'm going to be an A+ grade no matter what. So it's really a pass fail, I think, at this point. As long as they don't mess it up.
I always thought it was easier.
Mike did his entire really, college degree pass fail, so we're good.
That's right, 100%. I shout out UCM. That's really where I'm at. Like, as long as we're drafting, we don't play the slot games. It doesn't seem like it's the draft class for it. So just give me one of those top 9 and I'll be a happy boy.
All right, Mike, how about you? Who's going to be available and who are you taking?
Oh, I think there's going to be at least 2 surprise guys available. The big, like, kind of name, gosh, I'm taking Hagen Smith. Give me some, I think he's going to be there still. Give me some high-end college, close to the Major League Baseball starting pitching. And I think there's so much that you can do with that. You know, I've always been a guy who said, hey, give him a September in the bullpen before you call him up that next to the rotation that next year. I always liked that. I think Hagen Smith would be a great candidate for that. And I think he could be doing it next year. And so now some of that will depend on the development of that changeup, but you know, we'll see. But he's the guy I really, really like. I've been watching a ton of video on him and I kind of fell in love with him.
Mm-hmm. Another lefty for the bullpen? Yes, please.
Why not, right?
Can't have enough lefties.
Hopefully Will Smith is,
Yeah.
They just traded for a righty, Josh. I mean, what do you want from them?
What else do you want? That's really I'm really just here squeaky wheeling is all I'm doing. I gotta jump, boys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Josh.
Josh.
Have a good draft night. Thank you so much, Josh. Please do not abandon us to go listen to One Row Away. And Josh Kaiser, stay here with us. I'm sure you'll all have a fun time. I think one of the top 4 guys is making it to pick 6. I think it's either
it always happens.
It always happens, and this is a year where there is no definitive talent in the same way there has been in years past. So last year it was like, okay, Skeens, Cruz, and Langford. Everyone was like, those are the top 3 college guys. Some people liked Max Clark. I was like, okay, whatever. He made it into that group. And it was pretty much chalk last year, right? Mm-hmm. But you'll remember the year before that, what's his name? He just debuted with the Twins. Brooks Lee made it all the way down to like 7 with the Twins right before the Royals picked it, like 8, or I think, or 11 or 12. I can't remember exactly. But it was one of those things where one of those guys who was in the top fell a little bit, right? Like this is the same type of draft where there's not as much distinction between guys at the top. And so teams are going to play money games. And a lot of people aren't sold on the upside of guys at the top. And so they're like, why don't we just play money games? Why don't we just take some talent that's further on back and just try and make it a numbers game, get better talent throughout the thing, right? Like I know a lot of Royals fans hate that notion for the Royals, but it is a strategy a lot of teams employ.
Cam Collier is another guy that dropped further than a lot of teams thought that he would. He dropped into the low teens or 12 or somewhere around there. And he's been killing it recently. So he's, Jack Caglianone is the guy is the kind of name there that MLB Pipeline has in the top 4 that I think if there's going to be one that you're like, oh, he's dropping a little bit, I think it's going to be him. I know there's some signability issues with Condon. He wants a pretty high number. He wants 1-1 money, even if he doesn't go 1-1 possibly. So that's an interesting one. But Caglianone is the guy that I think might fall a little bit.
Yes, reportedly, Condon wants $9.2 million, which would break Skeens' record set last year. I don't know that he that's one of the reasons he's sort of cooled. Cleveland has cooled on him. They want to pay someone less money than that. Mike, we got a question in the chat to go back to that Harvey trade. They want us to give it a grade. If you had to give that Harvey trade a grade, what are you giving out as a grade for that Harvey trade?
I am an educator. Know a little bit about grading. I'm giving that Harvey trade a B+. It would have been an A if he had a little bit more control. He's got a year and a half, which isn't bad at all, but a little bit more control would have been a little higher. But no, I love it. A B+ to A- somewhere in that range is I think it's a great trade, and I think it's smart that they start with the bullpen and start early because they still got time to trade for a bat if they want to try and do that. And I think they gave up enough that they might still have a piece or two to use for something offensive, some sort of offensive help.
Yeah, I'm going to go with an A- for that Harvey trade because, yeah, you take a little damage giving up that 39 pick, and Caden Wallace is a good, not great prospect. Oh, hold on. Alex Duvall is trying to get in to the chat, but it won't let him, or to get into the studio, but it won't let him. Oh, there he is. There he is. There's our guy.
Probably working some janky internet out in the middle of the wilderness.
Exactly.
I can only see your chest and the bottom of your chin. That could just be me, though.
Well, no, he joined with some weird orientation, but he looks great.
Those are my best features. I don't know what else you want.
Okay, good. Oh, you're in a pitching ninja shirt on there?
Yeah.
Looks great. He looks great.
Hey, Alex. Oh, that's better. Now I can see your beautiful face. Yes, most of your beautiful face. It's great.
This is good.
You look great. Alex, we're talking about who might be available. Actually, we're grading the Harvey deal. I just gave it an A-. What are your thoughts on this Hunter Harvey deal? If you had to give it a grade, what would you give it?
A. That's a really good move. I agree with some of the thoughts on Twitter. The draft is relatively weak. They already had a huge bonus pool. It's not like, they lost a ton in terms of bonus pool.
Yeah.
Went from like 6 to 8.
Eighth amount. Yeah. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Did you? But you were a Caden Wallace guy. I mean, you like Caden Wallace. Does that hurt at all giving him up?
No, I think you have guys like Caden Wallace in the system already. Michael Garcia, Nick Lofton. I don't know that there's a huge separation between those guys. I mean, Michael Massey's playing second base. Nick Lofton can play second base. Not that he's that good, but I don't think the gap was that big. And so I think you had 3 guys that were very similar in terms of overall value across the board. And so, yeah, I'm good with it.
We got someone who posed a question in the chat. If the pick itself was obviously the more valuable of the 2 assets, is the pick more valuable than Caden Wallace? I don't think it is personally, but it might be.
It's close. I mean, Caden Wallace was a second-round pick or that pick. So it's like, honestly, if you said the pick was more valuable, I wouldn't think you were crazy. I mean, in terms of where they fell in the draft, they're very similar.
Yeah, and if a team really finds that crop of high school prep players that are graded in that 25 to 50 range, which there's a lot of them, if they like that group, they might see it as more valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is that Caden Wallace was taken in roughly the same area, and he's had a professional career that you would say tracks pretty well with someone taken in that area, right? He hasn't taken off in some way that's like, oh, he's going to be a superstar, but he hasn't tanked his prospect value either. He has sort of just moved right along
progression
through professional baseball. I think I've had questions about whether or not the power will ever develop into enough to be worthy of a third baseman who's not going to be Gold Glove or anything like that at third, probably. I don't think, but you're not saying he hasn't certainly like tanked his prospect value in any sort of way. And so it's interesting that to me, that makes the value of those 2 things relatively close there, because I looked the other day, Caden Wallace is still only 22 years old in Double-A, right? Like he was a draft eligible sophomore. He's still really young, And so there's a decent chance that he finds that power or finds the stroke that's going to make him a true offensive threat. And then you're looking at the upside of that pick. Alex, we want to go ahead.
I also think it's interesting that the Royals are pushing, like, just in general, trading an asset long term for asset now and gone after next year. It clearly tells you that they think, in my opinion, less about what they think of their team, more what they think of the AL, that this is a weak American League. I tweeted out Boston has a gauntlet for the next month after the All-Star break. You've got a jump on Houston and Seattle. I don't think the Royals are terribly far away from getting themselves in. And the thing the Royals have going for them now, and when we talked back in the middle of their hot streak, I said I still don't think they make the playoffs. And I still think if you made me bet 50-50 one way or the other, I'd bet no. However, the Royals are built very similarly to that 2014 group in that, I mean, not roster construction, but if they could get in, they've got a puncher's chance because they have the
I was
best
thinking that
rotation
yesterday
in the American League. They have the best rotation.
Well, and
Which
here's
is
the deal:
crazy.
your one of your weaknesses gets better because you can take Alec Marsh out of that rotation and put him into the bullpen. At least, or Brady Singer, or whatever, kind of whatever you think is the best one. Take him out, and now your bullpen just got better too, and that was one of the deficient areas. So it's like, yeah, I was thinking that exact same thing. They just got to get in,
Mm-hmm.
And if they get in, they're looking at a bullpen now that is Hunter Harvey, Chris Bubich, maybe Alec Marsh, James MacArthur, Sam Long, who's been incredible, right? Like, it gets a lot better if you sort of think of it in those terms. So yeah, getting in will be the difficult part. And another thing for them, like, yeah, their offense is inconsistent, but when it's hot, it produces a lot of runs. Like
Yes.
They have offensive tools and offensive upside. The problem is they have too many down times, right? And so it wouldn't surprise me if they get into the playoffs and they have enough guys in the lineup getting hot at the right time that they actually just go on a run like the 14 team did, right? Like, that would not surprise me in any way, right? Like, which is in some ways the formula for being a small market playoff team now, which is just get in, maybe you'll get hot and run all the way to the World Series, right? Like, it's possible. It does happen.
And
Alex,
go ahead.
Sorry, I got to get your perspective on some of these draft picks before picks start happening here. Who do you think will be available still when the Royals pick? And two, who do you really like for them as a pick?
So I've been on Twitter saying that I love
too much.
I will also note that Joe Doyle is reporting that J.J. Weatherholt will not be the pick by Cleveland. I don't know if that's the case. Yeah. He's just hearing from multiple sources that Weatherholt will not be the pick for Cleveland. So that's going to change a lot of stuff.
I think it's Bazana. I think it's going to be chalk.
Okay.
And so the thing with Hagen Smith is I think he's by far the best pitching prospect in this class. And he's a guy that, look, you would not do this. This would be totally what's the word? Totally irresponsible. But he could absolutely Brandon Finnegan his way into a big league bullpen.
You're giving too many of our fans hope. I just said this with Josh Kaiser. I just said next year he's in the bullpen. I just said that.
I honestly, he is not Paul Skeens, but I think you could, at the end of next season, introduce him to the big league rotation. He has such a unique look that in a short window in September, he won't get figured out that quickly. It's not like if he's going to pitch at all this year, he needs to go straight to Double-A. He's entirely too good for A-ball. He's probably going to tear up Double-A, honestly. He's just really advanced, and the look is so unique that I don't understand why people shy away from it so much. Like, oh, the reliever risk. It's like, okay, whoa. Like, no. Like, this is what we need more of, is these unique looks of guys who can hold 95 deep into outings. Like, this kid is awesome.
I'm sorry, with the way arms are, show me a pitcher who's not a reliever risk. Show me a pitcher who is not. That's just the nature of pitching these days, is you're doing so much damage to this thing. You're putting it at so much risk. Everyone is a reliever risk, like, either for effectiveness or for injury. They're all reliever risks, and so you should treat them all as such. I don't understand that notion hardly at all. Okay, if it is Bazana, but let's play this out. So is that who you want for the Royals at 6? Is Hagen Smith? Even if Caglione, even if one of those top 4 guys make it down to 6, are you?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
I would take Weatherholt. I would gamble on the hamstring.
Okay.
I would not take Caglianone. I don't want anything to do with that unless later in the like. Obviously, depends on where you're picking. At number 6, I don't want any parts of it.
Because of the first base profile.
And
He's a good
his
athlete,
chase
though.
rates are insane.
They
Like,
were.
can you-
They weren't as bad this year.
Can you guarantee me that the Royals have the ability to fix that profile of hitter? Because that has not traditionally been their strength.
No, it has not.
It really hasn't, and you can just name Sully Matias and so
And
many others, right? Like
Even a guy like Salvi, who seemingly has improved it slightly, that's all been done at the major league level. Like it's not happening in minor league baseball. So yeah, it's tough. And I'm trying to think, did Ivan Melendez, I mean, I know he's right-handed, but did he have that level of chase? I mean, was he at that level? And he wasn't taken that high, near that high.
No. Well, and again, Cags is, I mean, the reason you consider it is an electric talent. And I love the player. If they take him, I'll be excited. It's just, I'm going to be so anxious. Like, oh boy, here we go. Like the Royals don't need that right now. Like, in my opinion, the Royals farm system is so bad. Go get something that you think can be like a close for sure. Like the closest thing you think to a safety net, sell some upside, get you a safety net and Weatherholt. Well, and even Weatherholt, I get it with the injuries. I just think sometimes that soft tissue stuff is more overcomable than like if it was like a back issue.
Especially recently, we've figured a lot more out on how to handle those things.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. And so I look at it and think, take Hagen Smith, take Weatherholt, and then take your gambles later in the draft. Don't waste the 6th overall pick on something that you have to go on develop. Just be a little bit safer. Now, is Cags a potential superstar? Yeah. Like, there's some Hunter Green in there. Like, it's electric. But I just don't know if I trust the Royals to get it right.
Yeah, that's a legit fear. I think, and I don't think enough people are talking about it. People talk about Caglione like, oh, he's a surefire 2-way guy. He's going to relieve. It's like there are a lot of teams who I'm sure like, nope, day one, you're not going to pitch anymore, right? Like that's going to be a lot of teams. And, so I don't even know if the Royals would even let him pitch. And if you take that out of the sort of projection for him, what does the value then start to look like? Because now you're talking about a first baseman in the first round. And what have we seen from first baseman in the first round over the last few years? You've seen Andrew Vaughn. You've seen Spencer Torkelson go one. These are not huge success stories. And so you worry about a first baseman going. Now, I think Cags has much more raw power than both of those guys, but you still have the swing and miss. You still have the chase. There are still issues there related to him as an offensive player. And if you are a first baseman in the first round, you have to hit like an all-star. That's like the only thing you can do. So you have to hit like an all-star or you're worthless. Yeah, it will be Travis Bazzana. I think they just made the pick. Cleveland has gone Travis Bazzana 1-1.
They did.
Dude, how is it that the entire AL Central just gets handed gifts by the lottery, and the Royals have gotten absolutely hosed both years now?
Yep,
it sucks because Bazzano is my number 1 player in this draft, and if I put out a tweet earlier today, if I'm Cleveland, he's the one I'm taking, and I'm not playing the money games that they might think. They might save a little bit of money from Bazzana, but they're not going to save much. And
I mean, this dude, he is so good.
He's so good. He is
and
so
works
good.
like a maniac.
Yeah. Well, and like, okay, so Cleveland gets this just handed to them. Last year, it was Minnesota getting Walker Jenkins and Brooks Lee in back-to-back drafts. Like, who is? Whatever, man.
But wait, in everyone else's defense, when good things have dropped right in our lap, sometimes we've passed on those too. So
that's a fact.
Whatever.
But
Chase Young a few years ago.
But hey, who has the most recent World Series in the AL Central? Huh? Let me ask you that.
Good point.
Flags fly forever, people. Flags fly forever. Can't bring that down. All right, so it's Bazzana 1-1. If you don't know about him, he's an Australian-born player. Played at Oregon State, second baseman, left-handed hitter. I don't know how. I mean, I'm thinking Jeff Kent as a hitter. I mean, left-handed Jeff Kent as a hitter, and then I think
looks more like Bagwell.
Yeah, I think. Jacked. The defense will be better than Jeff Kent's was. I think he's an above average second baseman when somebody starts working with him, especially if they have a good infield coach. And so, yeah, Bazana to the Guardians, that's not something the Royals love to see for the next 10 years or so. They actually are going to hate to see it. And so,
Dude, I didn't know Stephen Kwan played at Oregon State.
I didn't either.
Me either.
They're just showing it on the highlight reel here.
They're also showing Travis Bazana hitting 450-foot tanks.
Absolute nuclear.
Big time
He
exit
is.
velocities from Bazana. He trains at Driveline up in the Pacific Northwest and just has incredible power from his frame. And he's also got a great hit tool, and his approach is like the thing that I salivate over. It's just insanely good.
He
And
reminds
so-
me of Vinny Pasquantino with a natural ability to lift the baseball.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
a good way of putting it. Yep.
Yeah.
In
Like,
fact, he is going to have,
smooth.
you imagine he will have at least Vinny Pasquantino raw power, at least.
Yeah.
And so, and you were talking like 60, 65 grade, maybe raw power for Bazana. And so, yeah, it's a great profile. He will only probably play second base. He is not a premium defensive position guy. He's not going to play center or short or catcher or anything like that. But, if you're going to go out and be a all-star caliber hitter every year, it doesn't really matter what position you're playing. So.
Did I see that he's the first second baseman ever taken first overall?
I did not see that yet, but
It tells you how far we're coming as a game.
yeah,
Right,
no
that we
kidding. Well, yeah,
identified
it's certainly you
the
certainly
value
don't
there.
see it often if it ever has happened like that. Yeah, you just don't see that.
Ooh, Keith Law is teasing a small surprise at 2, according to
Ooh,
what he's hearing. So,
You
that
think,
must mean it's
Connor
not
Griffin?
Condon. Ooh,
Connor
Chase
Griffin?
Burns is what Joe Doyle is saying. Chase Burns at 2
no,
to Cincinnati.
Dude, that fits their profile.
We told you.
I
we
guess
told
it
you,
is kind of
everybody.
Hunter Greenish.
We
Yeah.
say
Well,
this
no, Hunter
every,
Green's got an
every year.
elite fastball. People are worried about Burns' fastball. I mean,
Yeah, but its
not.
velocity is elite. You're not worried about his
That's
fastball? Why not?
No, he pitched. Where did they pitch? We got his data on TrackMan, and it was stupid. You almost can't build a fastball better than Chase Burns's. It is
Okay.
silly.
I saw something
It
the
is
other day.
still-
Somebody was wondering if those were a little inflated because of the ball they're using in college now. I could be wrong on that. Somebody said that.
I wonder, the thing that concerns me about his fastball is the numbers that I've seen against it, which is like, there's a decent amount of slug against that fastball. Now, I've heard people say, well, that's fine. Give him a 2-seamer, give him a cutter, give him something to make the fastball better. You're not going to change the fact that he throws a 70 grade slider and that he's got, 4
Good.
quality
I like his
pitches and he
curveball.
throws
I
strikes.
really like his curveball.
Chase Burns is an electric talent. I mean, there's just no other way to slice it. There are concerns, I think. The delivery has concerns in it. It's high effort, so you worry about things like injury. But, this is pitching in 21st century baseball.
Yeah,
There's
that's
worry about injury with
every
everybody, right? And so get the guy who's got the electric stuff. It looks like Cincinnati is going to get the guy who has the electric stuff. Alex, you know more about pitching than Mike and I combined, and times about 3. So what do you like most about Burns, and what have you seen from him?
It is absolutely electric stuff. I mean, it is. Who's a good? It is Tyler Glasnow level of just blow your doors away. The thing that I don't like about Burns' delivery, and the reason I had Hagen Smith above him, is that it is such a timing-oriented release that if it reminds me, this is a dumb comp, and I'm not actually suggesting this, but it reminds me a little bit of like the Dolphins offense. Like if you're not hitting 1-2 step throw, 1-2-3 step throw in time, in rhythm, then the whole offense gets out of sync. Like if Chase Burns is, and they're showing it here, if he doesn't get that arm caught up to the front of his release, the command goes wonky. Nothing works the way it's supposed to. It is so timing based. Now, we've seen, well, I won't use his name, but we've seen guys like him before be able to harness that delivery and make really good careers out of it. Win Cy Youngs out of it. Blake Snell is a good example. It's just a lot harder than a guy like Brady Singer, who's a smooth operator and theoretically shouldn't have had problems adding and subtracting from his arsenal, even though Brady Singer has no interest in adding or subtracting from his arsenal. Whatever, but you get the idea. It is such a difficult thing to maintain long term that I like Chase Burns, but if it were the Royals, no thank you. I don't trust them at all to help him refine that delivery.
Well, we've
So
seen guys.
I
oh,
know
go ahead,
nothing
Mike.
about pitching, but when I watched the very first game that I watched him pitch, it was that way. He hit a stretch there where he could not throw a strike, and what I noticed right away was like, because I don't know anything about pitching mechanics, but I know a little bit about football quarterback mechanics, and he has a very long swing. That hand comes down to his damn back leg knee, and then comes around, and so that's a really long arm swing for that, and can create great velocity, but can also get you in exactly what Alex described, and to where you're sailing balls left and right. And so, yeah, I was a little bit concerned about that as well.
We have
You guys
seen.
know hang on really quick. You guys know
Yeah.
I'm a Mizzou fan.
Mhm.
Do you know how much how irate it makes me to watch Tony Vitello do stuff in orange? Like, just how easily Mizzou could have had him running their baseball program and just said no. Nah. Why?
I don't know, man.
We're making you the next AD. I'll tell you that. I will say that we have
Hey,
seen.
We tried
We
to
have
get freaking the basketball coach at KU too. That didn't work out either. Remember that? Bill Self was going to be the coach here at one point, right?
I will die arguing that Quinn Snyder was not a bad hire. He just couldn't play off the blow.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Allegedly, let's throw that in there for legal reasons. All right, Mark,
was
what are
real.
you thinking?
I just had a thought on this notion because the type of pitcher Alex was describing. I tried to think to myself, okay, what are the examples we've seen of that type of pitcher? And the guy who came to my mind was Tim Lincecum. Honestly, who has a lot of moving parts to a delivery and had a stretch of his career where it was all on time a lot of the time, but you also saw that start to break down fairly quickly. He was out of baseball by the time he was 34 years old, something like that. And some of that's body type and things like that. But those longer, sort of more mechanically complicated deliveries can lead to those stretches of having trouble commanding and that sort of thing. And then ultimately, sometimes people worry about they lead to injury as well. And so,
Who was it?
Tim Lincecum, as an example of that.
How about Brad Keller?
Oh yeah, that's another good one.
Yeah.
Just too much going on. It can't get simplified. It's hard to rein in. I'll tell you who I would take if I was Colorado, by the way, is if I'm Colorado, I'm taking Jack Caglianone and I'm
Just for fun. Just for
Let him do
fun.
both.
What the hell?
You need pitchers. You need guys.
He's
that have
going to hit
power.
balls so far out of that place.
You need
Your
stars.
system sucks so much you need a pitcher and a hitter right now.
Go get one. That's the thing with Colorado and Oakland both. You need stars. Go draft a star.
Could be.
So-
you have to draft them.
So the question is now in my mind, where is Charlie Condon going? Right? Because I posed this question earlier today, maybe, right? But whoever takes him, unless he's willing to come off of that number of 9.2, or maybe that number isn't real, maybe that's just smoke. I don't know. What's going to happen when they try and negotiate with Charlie Condon? Like, are they going to have to say, like, you're going to have to meet us in the middle? Because the slot numbers start getting significantly less, right? Like, so slot value for the Royals pick at 6 is $7.2 million. If Charlie Condon wants $9.2 million, can they $2 million over slot somebody in the first round? That's crazy, right? Like, that's insane, right? And so they'd have to try and get him down a little
Yeah,
bit.
you're drafting somebody in 10 that you don't intend to sign.
They
if that's
did
the
it with
case.
Brady Singer.
Right. They did to do it with Brady Singer. And so it might be a similar type of thing to that, right? Like, but you'll remember they had to take a bunch of senior signs. I think they ended up taking a bunch of senior signs that year, right? And what team wants to do that in this draft? It wants to say, like, hey, we're gonna bypass volume altogether in this draft.
Colorado got Charlie Condon.
Okay, so it was Colorado. They decided they wanted Condon, and they'll make that move. It'll be easier for them because they'll have more money than, say, a White Sox or a Royals or something like that. But boy, he's going to hit some tanks out of that stadium, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Remind me to tell you my hot takes about Charlie Condon off the live.
Do you think it's not going to
No. We
No,
brought you
I
you
don't.
here for those hot takes on front of everybody.
There's a lot of Jonathan India to his game. I don't know that I'm buying the raw power numbers. The college.
There are
game
people talking
here,
about the ball. That's all I'm saying.
It was so juiced, and the bats are so much hotter than they have been in the BB Core era. I just don't know that I buy it. Nothing about his. And by the way, I would like to say that early in the season, I said Charlie Condon might go 1-1, and people are like, "Oh, I don't know about that." And then it was like, oh yeah, he might. And now I'm the one backing off a little bit. So we've kind of swapped roles here. I just don't know that I see it. Like,
Alex, I got a question for you that was posed in our chat, and you'll know more about this than any of us. Do you know what kind of money colleges can offer these guys these days? Like, what's the
NIL
dollar
money?
figure, NIL money from colleges that we're seeing
okay,
for
so it
baseball
varies-
for baseball
varies
players?
drastically, right? LSU, Arkansas have a lot. Michigan, none. So, like, and I'm using Michigan as an example, but like the Big Ten isn't spending a ton of money on baseball, right? So it varies wildly. So depends on what your commitment is. If you're committed to LSU, they could probably find you a ton of NIL money. If you're
Texas
committed
A&M,
to-
I'm sure does.
Dude, right. Even
Yeah.
Texas, oh my gosh, I don't even want to know. I can't imagine being a commit to Texas in 2024.
Yeah, you're talking upwards of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for the best players, millions even, like low
In
million.
baseball, I don't know that we're going to get to the millions.
You don't
I think
think
in
so?
baseball, the
The money might be spread out enough in baseball. Maybe that.
Let's use
Oof.
who was the big guy that just committed to Texas from the
Raymond.
transfer portal?
Oh,
One of the bigger
too many
transfer
names.
portal names. If you made me guess ballpark, I'm gonna guess the ceiling for his signing for NIL money is 150,000. I don't think we're getting.
oh, okay. I thought they were going big for these big ones. Okay, to bring
I
Paul
doubt
Skeens
it.
back and stuff like when he's a sophomore and things like that. Or
Yeah,
I guess-
I doubt it's that much.
Yeah.
But I
So
bet
that's
I
the
bet
kind of thing
you
we're
get
talking
some guys in six-figure range.
wow.
So for these guys up here at the top of the draft who were staring down $7, $8, $9, $10 million for their signing bonuses in Major League Baseball, the 150 they might be offered to go back to LSU or go back to Vanderbilt or go back to
Or
Tennessee
just
or
go to
Texas
college. Yeah.
or go to college at all is not nearly as appealing. Right now, for the high school guys, they would get another chance at it at the cookie 3 years into college, right? Like, but for the college juniors, right? They go back to college, they get the 150 grand or whatever. But guess what? Next year in the draft, they're getting way less money, right? Because they're a senior now, they can't go back. And so they have no leverage in negotiation, right? And as a result, they end up getting, that's why we say, oh, they have to do senior signs to save money. That's because you can pay senior signs way less, okay? For those of you who don't understand how the money system works, and it is a very complicated money system. And so we'll see here who Oakland is now currently on the clock, which means we have 2 picks until the Royals come up. Who's left on the board? We got Caglianone on the board. We got Connor Griffin on the board. We got Bryce Rayner. We have Nick Kurtz. We have Braden Montgomery. We have Hagen Smith. Those are really the guys, right?
JJ Weatherholt still there.
Oh, JJ Weatherholt still available. I forgot about him. We saw the A's take an extremely poor man's JJ Weatherholt and Jacob Wilson last year, a guy who's more hit tool over power, who has done quite well in minor league baseball.
Yeah.
So
I
far,
was shocked.
this whole podcast was kind of shitting on Jacob Wilson last year, and now he's tearing through minor league baseball.
Accountability.
Yeah, that was me.
Same here. All 3 of us. It was across the board on the Royals Weekly podcast, but we'll see. Story's not over for Jacob Wilson.
They can't all be winners, all right?
Can't all be winners. And so we'll see on that. But JJ Weatherholt has to present quite a appealing prospect for the A's at 4, I would imagine.
I'll tell you the only wrinkle in this I can see for the Royals is if Braden Montgomery sneaks his way in here on an underslot deal, then you're going to have your pick of the litter for the most part,
Oop.
and it's
It
going to
looks
be
like
A's
it's
are
going to be
in.
Kurtz. It's going to be Kurtz. For the A's at 4.
Ooh, that's
So
that's such an A's pick because he's a guy you can get for cheaper, probably.
Well, he's also an extreme plate discipline guy, a guy who takes a ton
Yep.
of walks, a guy who has a ton of plate discipline. In that sense, that is an A's move as well.
And
so
I don't want to say he's
overly
not a
surprising.
terrible athlete. He's not a terrible athlete.
He's not a terrible
He's
athlete.
just not a good athlete.
He's not a
And
good athlete.
The A's don't give a shit anyway on that front. So
Yeah, so
Dude,
we'll see.
he can absolutely hammer the baseball. He's one of the guys like with Caglianone. Like he's one of the ones I don't worry about the power translating to professional baseball. It
That's
is
what-
absurd.
yeah, to me, he's Vinny that can elevate the ball. That's what he is to me. Although he's gonna be in trouble if he doesn't elevate the ball. But yeah, Nick Kurtz, not a guy I was this high on for sure. Mark,
No, I
He's
certainly
getting better?
was not. Well, so one of the reasons that I'm not a big Nick Kurtz guy is the same reason I'm not a big Jack Caglianone guy is that first base profile, like take all the things that people are saying about Caglianone and Kurtz especially, and take yourself back in time. They were saying the exact same thing about Spencer Torkelson. The exact same thing, right? Like, and I get it. He mashes baseballs in college. I get it where the offensive environment is a lot better. I get it. He's got plate discipline. Great. Good for him. But if it doesn't work, if it doesn't even work just by a little bit, because Andrew Vaughn is a fine hitter, right? But he's not a good enough hitter to play first base in Major League Baseball. And as a result, that pick is wasted. You have now wasted a first round pick because he has no defensive value, because he's not going to help you on the bases in any way. It's just all got to be offense from him. And it's got to be elite offense almost. You need this pick. They need Nick Kurtz to be at least a 120 weighted runs created plus guy in Major League Baseball for the time he's with them. Otherwise, they threw the pick away.
Which we exactly said about Vinny Pasquantino last week.
Yeah. Because that's what he is, right? Like that's what Nick Kurtz is. Vinny Pasquantino. He needs to produce that same level of thing. Now, you still want to be able to find those elite mashers, and they're harder to find past the back into the top end of the first round. And so, I understand the pick, especially if they're going to get him at a discount. If they're going to pay him like he's the 12th pick or the 10th pick, I get it. But I would not make that pick at 4 myself, because I think that there are other offensive upside options. Like I would have taken Caglianone over Kurtz, honestly, because I think the athletic profile of Caglianone is better, right? But if you're going to make that pick, I understand it to some degree. But here's my big question now. One of Caglianone or Weatherholt is getting to 6. Okay? We know that now. All right? What are your guys' thoughts on the notion that the
Hagen
Royals
Smith
could
will
pick
still
one of
be
them?
there. Oh.
We know, Alex, that you're not interested in Caglianone. Mike, what are your thoughts? If Caglianone, if Caglianone is still there, if Weatherholt's still there, who are you taking?
Oh, I would take Weatherholt in that situation. Yeah, for sure. I would take Weatherholt.
Oh, Joe Doyle just tweeted out, "Well, blow up your boards." And so I don't know, something crazy.
Connor Griffin's still there too.
Something crazy might be coming for the White Sox too.
Good. They don't deserve good things.
No, they don't. Well, yeah, we know who's running the show, so it's probably like the pastor's kid.
Hey, you're talking to a youth pastor right there.
Sorry,
Be
buddy.
nice to him.
Hey, I love you. I love you.
It's okay.
You know the qualifications, my man. For
the White Sox are taking Hagen Smith. Oh, of course they did the Royals thing. They're like, let's just what are the Royals gonna do? We'll just do that.
What would the Royals?
We're just gonna do that.
Well,
Hey, JJ Weatherholt is on the board for the Royals. That's all I'm saying.
That makes some sense, because they also have Noah Schultz in their system. And I tweeted just the other day, they remind me of each other, these unique lefty. I mean, the Chris Sale mold, right? Just being funky from the left side, creating all kinds of lever issues for hitters. I love that for Chicago. Good for them. I hate them, but good for them. That was a good.
Yeah, and I like him a lot. I think there's some concern not concern. There's some thinking that his production, his success this year was not necessarily reflected in some of the pitch data, if that makes sense. So it's like, okay, it's not even bad pitch data. The pitch data is good. It's just you've got pitches like a fastball, a 4-seam fastball that doesn't have elite invert but has a little bit of run to it. And it's a slider that doesn't go at an elite velocity, but has a really good break to it. Although it's not exactly a sweeper, but it's not exactly, your traditional slider. And so there's some confusion maybe with his arsenal as comparing it to the production that he had, which was elite. I mean, this guy was as good as there can be in college baseball.
Here's the thing. Travis Mazzana is my number 1 player in this draft right now. But if the Royals take JJ Weatherholt, they might get the best player in this draft. If they take JJ Weatherholt, they might get the best player in this draft. That's what's crazy to me. By the way,
we know from historical precedent they are not doing that, because we know. So
They're so in love with Bryce Rayner. They are so in love with Bryce Rayner.
Do not say that.
Come on, Connor Griffin.
I like Connor Griffin.
I like Connor Griffin too, because we were there when they didn't draft Jace Young. We were there. They didn't do it with Matt Shaw. This profile of players just College
College
been their
hitters, they
thing.
hate them. They hate college
Well,
hitters.
especially ones that don't play elite defensive positions. That's just
I'm
how
telling
they.
you. I'm telling you. I just
They do.
cannot. I can't imagine a world where JJ Weatherholt gets passed up by the Royals. I mean, it's possible. I can imagine it because I'm a Royals fan. But if I were like, hey, I live in a realistic world full of rational people, I can't imagine a world where that happens. Like that's crazy.
If
to
it's
me.
Caglianone
It's crazy
or
to me.
Bryce Rayner,
It's not going to be Caglianone. He is so not a Royals player. Like he is just not their type of thing. Oh my God! It's Caglianone. No, wait. Hold on.
you know, JK.
We'll
there?
see.
JK.
I'm hearing Caglianone from multiple people.
Oh,
I'm seeing it on there. Oh yeah, I'm seeing it. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a thing,
Good
man.
baseball.
He's really good at baseball. What if they let him pitch? Are they gonna? They're never gonna let him pitch. I
They
can't.
should.
I'd love
it's-
it.
Joe Doyle's reporting it now, so we can pretty much put it in the book. It is.
I would love it.
They're taking the Royals will take Jack Caglianone with their 6th overall pick in this year's draft. He is a big, tall, 6'5", left-handed first baseman / relief pitcher. And so we'll see what the Royals do with that two-way player profile. A ton of power, 70 grade power, maybe.
Yeah, definitely 70 grade power.
A guy who up until this year has had a ton of chase, a ton of swing and miss, strikeout issues. And this year turned that around quite a bit, but people are still wondering, hey, have they done enough to turn around the swing and miss issues, the chase issues? Alex, you've seen this pick come in. What are your thoughts? If you want to wait a little bit, you can pass it to Mike.
Look, I get it. Like if you want the guy, the star of the class potentially, like I get it. But here's the way that like I look at it is this dude walked 58 times this year, struck out only 26, hit 35 home runs, hit 68 home runs over the last 2 years. What do you think you know that other teams just didn't? Right? Like at some point, the reason you have models is so that you don't overvalue your own scouting. Now, they did this last year with Blake Mitchell, and Blake Mitchell looks outstanding. I love what I've seen from Blake Mitchell. Blake Mitchell will probably always strike out a lot. I've kind of resorted to that, but I don't think it's going to be so much that he can't be an all-star. And so Cags has some of that, and if he's Matt Olson, if he's Adam Dunn, like that's a really good first baseman.
Adam Dunn, I had not thought of him as a comp, but that's a really good one. Yeah.
I think that's what you're going to end up with. And the Royals, by the way, maybe we should have seen this coming. Like if you look at the profile of hitter they have in the big leagues, they just refuse to teach guys to be patient. So maybe they're just like, hey, let's take the biggest, strongest guy we can find and just lean into it.
Well, this is actually an interesting comment, right? So who do you think I was looking up these numbers the other day. There's a team that has a worse walk rate and a worse strikeout rate than the Royals and is a better team offensively. It's the Baltimore Orioles. Do you know why they're a better team offensively? Because they hit for a ton of power.
Yeah.
They are leading the league in slugging percentage. The Royals seem to be leaning into an offensive profile that's like, we're not going to worry too much about on-base ability. We're going to worry a lot about hitting for power, right? And so, if you look at their lineup right now, you would say, okay, who are those guys? Those guys are Vinny. Those guys are Bobby. Those guys are Salvi. Those guys are Hunter Renfroe, who they signed in the offseason. Those guys are, they're sort of leaning into that like, oh, it's okay if you don't walk a bunch, but you need to hit for doubles and home runs, right? Like
even
and so
even
that's
their
what they
center
got
fielder
Caglianone
has that a little bit,
a little bit.
Even
to
Kyle
some degree.
Isbell, I mean, he's a small defensive first center fielder, but you never say, well, he never hits the ball hard. Like he can hit the damn ball hard. Like I never really thought about the Royals moving to a different offensive profile like that. I just thought they sucked at developing an approach that could take a walk. And interesting stuff.
So Jack Caglianone, for those of you who don't know, I'll give you a little stat line. He had in 66 games, 316 plate appearances. He hit .419 for a batting average, .544 for an on base, .875 for a slugging for a 1419 OPS, 35 home runs this last year, walked 58 times and struck out 26 times, as Alex mentioned. A guy with light tower power who you hope has gotten over the swing and miss issues, because we know the Royals aren't terribly successful fixing those swing and miss issues. And here's the thing. We can talk about how the Royals are comfortable with guys being like swing first, overly aggressive hitters. But at the end of the day, you can't strike out 40, 45 times in Major League Baseball. And so if he's that bad, if his swing and miss issues become that much of an issue, things might get worse as an issue. All right. I have lots of questions lined up, but first we need to do an ad, okay? Because I'm going to forget to do ads if I don't jump in there at some point. Let's see here. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Phoenix has all of our favorite things: year-round golf, year-round baseball, and Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Whether you want to buy your dream retirement home or just stay a while and catch spring training, Eric can help you find the perfect spot fast. We've known him for more than 30 years, and we trust him far more than we even trust each other.
Remember that time I ordered 20 pizzas to your house and all of them were cauliflower crust?
Yeah, that's the worst thing.
Get healthy, bastard.
Eric does long-term rentals for the Snowbird crowd and home sales and purchases for those who want to stay a while longer. Are you a baseball player or parent who needs a place in the Phoenix area? Jack Cagliano, you need a place in Phoenix? Eric will find you the perfect spot fast. Want to spend your days shanking golf balls into the great beyond? Eric knows the golf scene like Mike knows how to say, "Please, Judge, I didn't know you couldn't urinate there." Find Eric online at ericoxer.com if you can figure out how to spell his name, ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. Even if you're just curious about what he can do for you, he's 100% no pressure, one of the best people we know.
And he always nails his first-round picks.
Speaking of nailing first-round picks, let's do some grading. Alex, what is your grade for our pick here?
I'm going to give it the exact same grade that I gave last year when they drafted Blake Mitchell. I'm going to give it a B+. I think the player they drafted is an incredible talent, an incredible player that they are lucky to have available to them at the spot. I also think there is some inherent risk when you take a player like this. I don't trust the development team to get this one right. This is not the type of player the Royals have been the most successful with in the draft, in player development, going back over the last few years. So I think it is one of those overvaluing your own scouting, overvaluing the numbers, overvaluing the player and not what you do well as an organization. But the player is inarguably talented. This is almost the exact same thing I said last year, right? Drafting a college first baseman is a very much like drafting a high school catcher, right? They're talented, but there's a reason they don't work out very often, and you have to account for that. The Royals are flipping the bird to the model.
To that thinking.
And saying, we are going to take the most electric player we can find and deal with the consequences if it doesn't work out. And so they have doubled down on that this year, and I guess we'll find out.
Do you think they're going to let him pitch?
They announced two-way player on here.
Okay, they must be letting him pitch.
So I don't know that he's going to get the start.
No,
but
I wouldn't think.
Mike, what is your grade? What do you think?
No, my grade, I'll go B- because of a lot of the things that Alex said. Actually, the Blake Mitchell pick immediately, or the congruency there of the risk and the Royals' willingness to take that risk, was the first thing that popped into my head. And I'm like, the great thing is you'll never see a better highlight reel than his. Like, he hits huge home runs. I mean, the guy is unbelievably powerful, has been for a couple of years, has shown the ability to improve. He's kind of like that on the mound too. I mean, he's a reliever. He throws straight gas, and he can be very, very wild with it and very inconsistent with it. And I don't. I would have taken JJ Weatherholt. It would have been nice to be a little safer in my book.
They're about to have a first baseman who throws 100 miles an hour. Like, think about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's just what's interesting to me. Anyway,
here's my thing with a two-way player being in relief is, when do you throw him? Do you throw him when he's playing first base and now you lose your DH? Do you throw him in days when he is the DH and you enter the DH into the game? Like, I almost don't know that a two-way player works.
That was my thought. I've
really-
never heard anybody say this is how you use a guy in a bullpen role and hit. I've never heard of it.
Well, so
maybe
I think
you do the Ohtani where you start him as an opener and you let him throw 1, 2, 3 innings to begin a game as the pitcher DH, and then you pull him from the game and continue to let him hit. I just don't know how this works.
They'll be able to,
Yeah.
if they wanted to do that, they can kind of play with it in minor league baseball, but still,
I'm not
that's
100%
weird.
clear on what the rules are if you want the pitcher to hit. And so there's obviously an opportunity to, like, if he's playing first base, he comes in and pitches, he hits as the pitcher. So I guess that's in the DH spot. So you'd have to lose your DH. You're right. Yeah. You'd have to lose your DH.
Well,
so you'd have to be
that's why they
comfortable
made the
with
rule for Ohtani. So the pitcher
Well, if he's
starts
your
the game.
if he's your
and is the
closer,
DH.
if you're only bringing him in the ninth, right, and you do that, you just sub him out after that inning for a different DH. I mean, it's going to cost you a bench player every time you use him, or every time it goes into extras, I guess.
They must have a plan for him of some sort because they're going to have to implement it the second he gets to the professional baseball. So, he's going to be working it out at, Columbia or, Quad Cities or
If
Northwest
they
Arkansas.
send him to Columbia,
at some
I'm
point.
going to blow a gasket.
It's not.
There's
It makes no
reason
sense
for him
to
go
me.
to Columbia.
It makes no
He's
sense to
playing
me.
SEC.
Yeah.
Get him up.
It makes no sense to me to send him there. But you never know. They do like to send him through the entire gauntlet of
Gavin
things.
Cross,
And so,
yeah, he went.
we will see. Mike, you gave it a B minus. I'm going to go ahead and give it an A minus. No, I'm sorry, a B plus. I'm going to give it a B plus. It would have been an A minus had they taken it would have been an A plus had they taken JJ Weatherholt. The problem with this is if coming into the draft, if you had said, oh, Caglianone's going to be available at 6 and they're going to take him, I'd have been like, cool. That's a good pick. It's a high upside pick. And I'm looking for big upside guys at 6. Right. But Weatherholt was available in this scenario. And I would much prefer Weatherholt, who is both a high upside and a much higher floor than Caglianone. Right. And so I would prefer him as a pick, but that doesn't mean I don't think that Caglianone was a good pick. Right. It's just, there was one better pick out there at that point. And so, we'll see those two are kind of get compared to each other in the same way that, Brady Singer and Nolan Gorman are compared to each other, in the same way that, some others are compared to each other who the Royals sort of let pass. We've been comparing Matt Shaw and Kyle Teal to, Blake Mitchell. And so we'll see on that. Any other parting thoughts? We're gonna take a break here in a second and then come back for pick 41. Do you guys have parting thoughts about player comps for Jack Caglianone, or what you think his ceiling or floor might be?
Gosh, player comp. I don't know about approach. Power wise, Jim Thome. I mean, he's got that kind of left-handed power. But I don't know if I don't know if his approach is as good as what Thome's was, but, and Caglianone's probably a better athlete than Jim Thome was, I think anyway. There's been, discussion of, could Caglianone play right field? I don't know, because I haven't seen him run that much, but he's got the arm to play right field. He seems like he's not a fat slob first baseman. He's a built dude, and it looks like he can move a little bit. So he probably plays you plus defense at first if he stays at first for sure, which I know that's not a lot, but it's something. So I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
I think my fear is that he's like Teoscar Hernandez, which is a fine hitter, but it's not what you're really looking for consistently. I guess Teoscar Hernandez is maybe better than I give him credit, but
people are asking on
Teoscar Hernandez is a little better.
We got an interesting question. Why were people not taking Weatherholt? Was their question. I think my only answer to that is hamstrings. That's the reason that they weren't taking him. They're afraid of the hamstring injuries. They're afraid it's going to be a recurring problem. They're afraid it might cause other problems, feet problems, and things like that moving forward. Back problems. That's one of the things some of those hamstring issues can do. And he doesn't have a premium position. He's got a high ceiling, but it's not so high you're willing to overlook those. And so, that's why he's fallen a little bit. He did go to the Cardinals at 7, and so he's now off the board. But I wanted to let that question go. All right.
I think Teoscar Hernandez might be a good one to look at. He's only got one season with home runs in the 30s, But generally speaking, 7% walk, 30% strikeout, 225 ISO, 120 weighted runs created plus in his career. I think that's probably ish.
And that's I like that comp a
Caglianone
lot.
might have better raw power than him even. Like, and he's
Oh,
a
yeah,
great
he does.
power hitter.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I will say this. I was listening to Baseball America's draft podcast earlier today. And one of the things they mentioned about Caglianone is he does not miss inside the strike zone. Like, he has a really good zone contact rate. And so he has the hit tool to have plate coverage and to cover the zone top to bottom. The problem is he chases too many balls outside the strike zone.
Who does that sound like?
Every Royals hitter ever.
No.
Salvador Perez.
Sounds like Salvador Perez. Yeah.
Michael Massey a little bit. I mean,
It sounds like left-handed
Yeah.
Salvador Perez. Yeah, it sounds like. Well, he'll have much better power than Michael
yeah.
Massey. And
yeah,
so,
for
yeah.
sure.
So the formula you hope for a Jack Caglianone is that he becomes. God, I hope he walks more than Salvador Perez does. Maybe like Salvador Perez walking a little bit more with that kind of power, and I think he'd be pretty. You'd love that for a career for him. Any parting thoughts before we sign off? We'll be back at around pick 38 to preview pick 41. Any other thoughts?
I like some
thoughts?
college arms there. That's
Oh, yeah, let's
my
talk-
thing. I like some college arms at 41. Hey, buddy,
Say hi.
how you doing?
There's lots of people watching right now. You better be.
That's right.
Say
The
hi,
podcast
everybody.
just got a little more handsome there. What's up, feller?
This is why Royals Farm Report's not around anymore.
Ah,
Don't put that on him. Don't put that on him.
way more fun than writing blog posts and
Way
And doing
more
that
fun
other
than
crap.
writing blogs and recording every week and
Yeah.
looking at you guys more than I have to.
yeah.
Oh, come on now. I'm handsome too. Yes, a lot of interesting. We will preview that when we come back at pick 38.
Oh, hey,
Thank you so
see
much.
who the
Yeah.
Angels just took?
Christian
Moore.
Moore.
How about
Huh?
that?
Yeah.
All right.
Apparently,
I'll see
some
you-
sort of eye procedure like saved his career or something, or he got to change his vision or something.
We'll see you guys a little bit later. Thanks,
All
guys.
All right.
Later.
Thanks. See you, Alex.
Yeah. Bye.